Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone has been having a pleasant morning so far. I know it's really, really early. I'm already on my first cup of coffee. I got my canister here. This actually keeps my coffee warm, guys, for like 3 hours, maybe like four, like it's heaven. It's by Elo or something like that. But anywho, I'm ready. We had a really great first day of Black Writers Weekend. And we had some amazing, amazing conversations. We dug in deep. We talked about so many different social issues. We talked about so many amazing stories, the history of our stories. And so now we have to have that conversation about getting your stories out there and amplifying them. One thing that we have always had consistent at Black Writers Weekend is our pitch fest. And this is where we offer up opportunities for writers to connect with agents, editors, and publishers to possibly get their book published or to get some feedback, some creative feedback on their projects as well. And so we do have some submissions for our pitch segment. Good morning, Anita. And so we're going to actually share those pitches with the editors. And so for those who actually pitched this year during Black Writers Weekend or submitted their project, you actually have your book submitted over to these panelists that you're going to hear from this morning. And I'm really excited to have these editors involved because they have never been a part of Black Writers Weekend before. So we're excited to be able to share the same space. I'm also excited to learn more about Harlequin as well as one of our featured editors that's an independent editor as well. And Harlequin, I learned that they do a lot of different things as well as, produce films. I was like, really? Okay, cool beans. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest and go ahead and get this conversation started. And it's going to be a conversation. It's going to be very informative. Grab your pen, grab some paper. Like, let's go old school with the notebooks. I got mine here, my little journal here. And I got my little pen here because I may be taking me some notes too because I'm actively writing as well. And so let me go ahead and introduce our panelists. One panelist I'm very familiar with is Sheree Robbins. We have crossed paths, I want to say some years ago. I can't tell you where because in those early days, I traveled a lot with my book. So Sheree, welcome on. She's a best-selling author. She's a literature, she's an editor. She does it all.
Good morning.
How are you? Oh, you look so pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm a little lopsided this morning, but I'm good. Thank you for having me. And I remember exactly when it was the Harlem Book Fair. It was my first Harlem Book Fair, and I was up there with Karen.
Oh, wow.
That's when we met. I remember.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Then that was some years ago.
Yep. And if I dug in my old archives, I bet you I still have your business card from then.
Oh, wow. Well, if you do, send me that because I want to see what it looked like. That sound like me. I have business cards, postcards, all that jazz. Yeah. So thank you so much for being part of the conversations. I'm really eager to hear, about your current journey and what you're doing in your editing and agenting space. And so let's go into some of our guests. Let me tell you a little bit more about Harlequin, though. Harlequin is a leading global publisher of popular fiction and nonfiction and the biggest romance publisher in the industry. It has offices in countries around the world, and just this past year, Harlequin celebrated 70 years of bringing enjoyment of readers around the world. Harlequin is famous for romance novels, but many people don't know that there are two actual sides to Harlequin's publishing program. This is why. So Harlequin has a romance line. And representing that line is Gail Chasen. Welcome on, Gail. Now, Harlequin series is made up of 12 romance lines that range from offering historical romance, mystery, suspense, to contemporary and inspirational romance. 66 new novels are published each month. That's 66, not 6. 66. It's a lot. And readers can even subscribe to receive their favorite lines delivered directly to their homes and their e-readers. That's pretty cool. Gail is a senior editor with Harlequin and joins us. Hello, Gail. Welcome to Paradise.
Hello, Tamika. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here. And thank you so much for inviting me. I've really been looking forward to this. Just a little bit of background. I've been with the company for a very long time, but I'm the senior editor of Special Edition, which is a 60,000 word contemporary romance line. And we do 6 books a month. We have, as you pointed out, we have so much going on the series side. And I look forward to hearing from everybody. So again, thank you. This is amazing. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited. You're excited. I'm excited as well. We're also going to bring, we'll talk about their trade publishing. The Harlequin has expanded to publish a wide variety of books that appeal to a range of readers and tastes. In addition to its 12 romance lines, Harlequin has expanded its publishing program with 7 trade imprints that publishes approximately 300 fiction and narrative nonfiction titles annually. Through these imprints, Harlequin publishes a broad range of best-selling authors and books, including contemporary book club reads, psychological suspense, and crime thrillers, historical fiction, mainstream literary novels, paranormal, fantasy, young adult fiction, which I didn't know, plus journalism, memoirs, and biographies. Now joining us is going to be Peter Joseph. He's representing Hanover Square Press. Howdy, Peter. I want to say so bad. I don't know why I want to keep calling you Pete. Hey, Pete, but hi, Peter.
Go for it. Go for it. Why not? Why not?
All right, cool. Yeah, and also joining us is Carrie Buckley. I'm really, really excited to speak with you, Pete, and also Gail. And then we're also going to bring in Carrie. She's from Carina Press. And then Natalie Halleck, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She's representing Park Row Books. So Natalie, Carrie, Peter, Gail, howdy guys.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Happy Friday.
I know we got
excited to be here.
Gail. Natalie, can you take us into a little bit of who you represent, what you do, and what type of titles you really, really aim for?
Sorry, you said me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Halleck. I acquire for Park Row Books, which is a literary fiction and nonfiction imprint at Harlequin. It was launched in 2017, and we're really, specialized in, fiction and nonfiction that features empowering women's stories. And yeah, we're really eagerly looking to grow our list. And I specialize in book club fiction, literary fiction, memoir, and narrative nonfiction as well. So really thrilled to be here. And my own personal, journey, I've been with Harlequin for 5 years now, since 2015. And before that, I did a multitude of internships in publishing to get to where I am. It's been really, really exciting time as someone who is more on the up and coming side, being at a new imprint and really getting to build my list. And I can talk about a couple of titles that I'm really excited about. One is a memoir that I just acquired. It hasn't been formally announced yet, so I can't, go too much into the details, but I'm really excited about it. It's this woman's story. She's a podcast host, and she basically talks about her story as she's Jamaican born, Bronx raised, and she decided to leave everything behind to pursue her dream of moving to Paris and kind of live that American in Paris fairy tale that, so many of us might dream about. And so she actually did it. But then when she was there, her fairy tale life just kind of fell apart and her marriage fell apart. And it was it's really her story of kind of rebuilding herself and her journey of self-discovery actually through French cuisine. So she starts rebuilding her life, starting in her Paris kitchen. So it's really kind of her story of empowering herself through food, and she, fuses some French cuisine with her own Jamaican heritage, and so it's going to feature some recipes from her as well. So keep an eye out for that one. Okay. I'm really, really excited about it. And I can also talk about another book that I'm publishing that I'm really excited about, which is The Last Story of Mina Lee by Nancy Ji-yoon Kim, which is a debut novel that's coming out next week, actually. And it's It's an immigrant story, a mother-daughter saga, and it basically tells the story of this this Korean American woman who comes over to her childhood apartment where she grew up with her mom, who they grew up in poverty, and her mother was an undocumented immigrant from Korea. And the novel tells the story of this mystery. She finds out her mother has suspiciously died, so she has to go through her mother's past as an undocumented immigrant to get to the truth of what happened the night of her death. And then it's intertwined with the mother's story of first coming to America in the 80s and the people she met along the way and unexpectedly falling in love, and how that love story sets in motion a chain of events that leads up to the night of her death. So it's this unconventional mystery. Yeah, it has a plot that really moves and just gorgeous literary writing. And it's going to be a really big title for Park Row coming out next Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that.
That has to be exciting. That has to really be exciting. Congratulations really on that. Those stories are very, very, very different. So it looks like you have like this free open space to kind of select stories of all types of walks. Is that the same with you, Peter? Can you kind of take me into your journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Joseph. I'm editorial director of Hanover Square. I joined Harlequin in the fall of 2016. They brought me over from St. Martin's Press. I'd been at St. Martin's for a dozen years or so before that. And they brought me in to start Hanover here. And the plan for Hanover is that we do half fiction, half narrative nonfiction. On the fiction side, we like to keep it broad. Everything is really broad. I think we're really just looking for exciting stories. That's probably a key part of it. But the fiction side is crime fiction, general literary fiction. We also do speculative fiction, so things that might veer into sci-fi, fantasy, that sort of thing, but aren't entirely genre, you could say. And then on the nonfiction side, what we're really looking for is narrative, narrative nonfiction. We want a great story. So that covers a lot of ground. That could be journalism writing, a really long form piece, something like true crime. We have a great book that really delves into this sort of incredible cult that's called Broken Faith. That's a book that came out by 2 Associated Press writers earlier this year. We also do memoir. We have a great memoir that we've done called Moving Forward by Corinne Jean-Pierre. She was the chief spokesperson for MoveOn.org, but as of 2 weeks ago, she is now the chief of staff for Kamala Harris as part of the Biden campaign. Yeah, wow. So she's an amazing person. I'm so lucky that we got to publish her book. I'm really thrilled for her. She's just been a powerhouse. She worked in the Obama White House, and she wrote her book partly because she was born in Martinique. Her parents are Haitian. They eventually settled in Queens, and she wanted to write about what is sort of an unusual story to get into politics, in national politics. There's not a lot of people with her background who are on the national stage, and she wanted to show people that it's possible and you can get involved. So we're doing the paperback early next year, right around the inauguration. So I'm going to knock wood right now. So, but in the meantime, the hardcover and the audiobook and the ebook are out. Those are just sort of 2 examples. I think right now, probably the biggest books we have that are sort of known, and I think of a cover, they show the range that we've done really is, we have this great book of narrative history about the last murder trial that Abraham Lincoln was involved in as a lawyer before he was elected president. And it's the only trial. Yeah, it's an amazing book. It has the only transcript of a trial that he's involved in. So you really do get to hear his words in the courtroom, which is amazing. So it's got this great true crime story to it. And then we did what hit the New York Times list last year was Hurricanes, which is a memoir by the rapper Rick Ross, which we were going to be doing a paperback soon. And then we did this really fun book about the TV show Friends and just the backstory of how the show was created and how it's influenced the whole world. It's called I'll Be There For You by Kelsey Miller, who writes for Refinery 29 and Bustle and places like that. But we really, I think one of the key things for us is we're just looking for unique voices and perspectives. We want to reach people with stories that, the author either is the journalist who discovered this story that's never been told, or they have a unique perspective that they're bringing to their work that no one else can have. And I think that's a big part of what I'm looking for. So It's always exciting. There's always something new, no matter what book you're working on. You're always learning something. I think on this side, it makes me good at trivia, I think, in the meantime. So.
I love it. Your press sounds really, really interesting. I love it. I love the whole diverse storylines and genres that's going on over there. It got me excited. I'm over here really taking notes. Carrie, we haven't really got to dive into or speak or hear your voice as of yet. So take us a little bit into your journey.
Sure.
You're a little bit quiet over there. It's a little bit dark too. What you got going on? What's that?
I'm so sorry. So I've been living in a cabin with my 4-year-old son.
I thought it was a cabin, but I didn't want to say anything.
There's wood everywhere. And this is the best setup that I've devised to date. I've tried a bunch of different places. So I'm here. I'm very awake. Okay. It's just, we're in the woods. It's very dark.
That's nice. I love nature. Cool beans. This is cool.
Well, I've had enough after 5 months, but it's been nice to be here. So first, thank you very much for having me, and hello, colleagues. We haven't been working in the same office for like a while, so it's really nice to hear about everybody's projects. Natalie, I didn't know about your memoir acquisition, so that was really exciting, and just hearing this catch up has been really great. So I'm the senior editor of Carina Press. Carina is Harlequin's single title digital first imprint, but that's changing. Everything we do is still digital first, but we're publishing more and more and more in audio and in print as well. So the program is expanding. Although we remain true to what we've been doing for 10 years, which is digital first publishing. So we publish across romance primarily, all heat levels, all subgenres. So when you're looking at the board of all of us here, I do work most closely with Gail. I've actually got some books on Gail's special edition list now. Yes, we've got a few projects together, which has been really exciting. Carina publishes about 60 books a year for the past couple of years moving forward. And like I said, across formats, audio, print, and always digital first. We still maintain a pretty small but powerful mystery list where romance isn't required. And that is mainly through a collaboration with our direct-to-consumer group. Harlequin has our own book club, which is a great thing about Harlequin. We've got a subscription service. Gail touched upon this, and I think, Tamika, you mentioned it in your introduction. They come to Carina for some mystery content for the Worldwide Library for those subscription boxes. So we handle the ebook side, and then there's a print component through DTC. So it's always very exciting. There are a lot of different things going on day to day. This year, Carina just launched a new sub-imprint. It's called Carina Adores. This is a print imprint. They're published in trade paperback, and they're carried at retailers as well as online. And Carina Adores is, it's so exciting. It's just lovely. It's a very trope-focused line of romances featuring LGBTQ protagonists. So think of your sort of, if you will, throwback romances where you're really leaning really heavily into those tropes. It's your best friend's older brother, or it's a billionaire story, or it's a small town romance, but all of the primary players are from the LGBTQIA community. And the focus, the conflict, is never on the sense of identity. It's sort of removing that from the equation. So I don't know if we've got any Schitt's Creek fans listening, but it's sort of taking that beautiful, emotional, and frankly idealized world and bringing it to romance novels. So we are 5 books in. We just went on sale yesterday. Tuesday. What day is it? Tuesday, with Roan Parrish. Roan Parrish is an author who's been writing in the male space for a long time. So when she agreed to write for Carina Adores, I was delighted. I'm working with her as her editor. Her book is called Better Than People, and it's the story of a very reclusive, very grumpy children's book illustrator who's just kind of been wronged professionally. And he's out walking his dog. He's got this great menagerie of pets, dogs, cats, whatever. It's his only real sense of joy. He's out walking his dog, takes a horrible tumble, and can't care for his animals. And so he needs some help. He puts out an ad on like a petfinder.com type of thing for a dog walker. and meet Simon. Simon has always wanted to have pets. Simon is neurodivergent. Simon lives with his grandma and takes care of her. And the two characters that Roan has created this very grumpy, sort of down on life illustrator, and Simon, who is just gentle and quiet and all heart, form an unlikely relationship with the help of many pets. And it's just wonderful. It's a fantastic story. It's the first of two we've got from Roan and the Karina Adores line. And it's just a delight. So I just want to call out one other book that also went on sale this week. It's called Here to Stay, and it's by an author called Adriana Herrera, who I'm just so in love with. Adriana she's the best. We've published 4 books from Adriana to date in a series called The Dreamers, and that's intentional. It does go back to DACA. It's her first series is based around 4 friends who grew up in the Bronx together, and each member of the friend group gets their own book and their own romance, and it's a mixed pairing series. So a mixed pairing series is some of the books are LGBTQ, some of the books are straight, as you go book to book. Adriana's new series kicked off on Tuesday with a book called Here to Stay, which is her first print play. We are in trade paperback with this book, as well as ebook and audio. And it's the first in a new series featuring a group of friends who are all expats. They're all New Yorkers who find themselves in the wild lands of Texas and trying to sort that out and establish a new life and a new path for themselves. And it's very cool. It's got this sort of high fashion aspect to it, because all of their players work for this very Neiman Marcus-esque department store down south. So in the first book, you've got the young woman who runs their philanthropic arm. She runs the child care and their charity segment of the department store, their 501c3, if you will. And the romance is with this consultant who's from Queens. His name is Rocco, of course it is, who comes down to essentially shut her down and save the department store a lot of money. And so you've got this enemies to lovers thing at play here, and it's just wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. So
I love how you close your eyes when you talk about these titles and your authors. It's like you're so in love with them.
I'm into it. I am 100% into romance. So it's not. I've been with Karina this is my 7th calendar year. Just started in May. But before that, I was at Bantam Dell, which at the time was Random House. It wasn't PRH yet. It wasn't Penguin Random House. And I did romance there, but not exclusively. I did women's fiction. Peter, I did the occasional nonfiction. I did memoir. I did a whole much broader scope of fiction and nonfiction. And when Harlequin offered me the position at Karina, I was just ecstatic, because romance has been where my heart is for a very long time. And so I'm just into it. I'm very happy every day when I get to work on these books.
You look very, very happy, and look, you're living in the woods, in the cabin. Like, come on, like you can't get no better than that. Like, you can't be any more free than that. Oh. I love it. I'm loving all these stories I'm hearing about. Sheree, I want to jump over to you, because you're coming from a different space. You're not only are you a creative such as myself, but you also help other writers polish their manuscripts. You get it ready for readers to enjoy. And then also you are a creative, and you also been published under a major publisher as well. Take us into your creative journey and how you help writers get their books out there as well.
Sure. I've always been a writer. So I fell in love with writing when I was 8 years old. And that was just like the catalyst for everything for me. So I went into my undergrad and studying writing. I went into my master's degree in studying writing. So I published my first novel with Simon & Schuster, and I need to finish the second one real soon. I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm in trouble, but this love for language just kind of followed me throughout my whole life. And what I realized is that there were a lot of people who needed assistance in learning how to write. There were lots of nonfiction people who I met all the time who wanted to tell their stories and wanted them to have impact, but they didn't know how. And so I would see these really very strong similarities between undergrad students that I was working with and how they were writing, and then my adults, freelancing clients that I had as an editor, and the same hiccups. So I was like, oh, brilliant idea. These people just need to learn how to write. And that was what like launched me out into full-fledged entrepreneurship in 2015. So I decided, instead of going to work at a university and going to teach, why don't I just teach grown folks how to write? Like, let me teach you how to do this the right way. So fiction has always been a love of mine. I started off with the love of poetry. And so that's essentially what I do. And my team, I have a team of editors whom I call my literary baes. That's my BAE, my badass editors. And so we help people polish their writing. We find that so many people have incredible stories, but they just don't know how to tell them, or how to structure a story, or what is plot, or what do you mean I can't use said for every attribution? That's not okay. No, so they don't understand certain technical devices that are a part of the writing process. So my team and I, we work with them from start to finish, from brain dump to completion. And some of our clients self-publish, and then some go on to publish with major publishers. But myself and my team are really hands-on in like the actual writing process. And it's exciting, right? It's pulling. It's, we have clients who are emotional sometimes. We have traumatic stories and experiences. So it can be like we're prayer warriors, coaches, I call it track stars. Sometimes we got to chase our clients down to get them to submit.
Track stars.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, writing is tough. And I think that people want to do it, but they don't know how to do it. So we just kind of lay ourselves out there as the supportive part to help people get their stories written, and written well.
I'm loving some of these terms you're using, the brain dump. I love that. I'm like, because sometimes I have to feel like I have to just dump everything out of my head, so it can start making sense. Brain dump. I love that. And I love bays. Badass editors. I like that. That was cute. I like that. Gail, I want to jump back over to you, because you seem like the most seasoned in this space, where you've been able to help build a lot of writers, also give a lot of writers platforms. I can just imagine how many writers you've worked with over the years. Do you have an idea how many?
I don't have a number, and I know you're not, that's not a nice way of saying that I'm probably the oldest one on the panel, but that's okay.
But season mean like,
seasoned
more flavor.
And, the funny thing is, I have been around series, so long that for the longest time, that was all we did at Harlequin. And we had, it has changed a great deal, and we are always looking for new authors, for more diverse authors, for characters that, although they're, as Carrie said very well, actually, they're dealing with the same romantic tropes, but they are from backgrounds we might not have imagined 10 years ago, 20 years ago, certainly. And the Roan Parrish that Carrie was describing is actually, we are doing 2 special edition books from her. The first one is coming out in October of 2000 and what year is this now? So it's 2021. We also, I think about the Romance Includes You mentorship, and the winner of that prize, which was a publishing contract, a cash prize, and a year of editorial mentorship with the wonderful Charles Grimsman, is a young woman named Tano, and her book is amazing. And I believe, I read it a while ago, I believe it's all set in the Bronx, which for me is, I'm a Brooklyn girl, so that totally works for me. I've worked with a great many authors. Many of them have stayed in series while they've written all kinds of fiction for other programs that we offer. And some of them have moved on, everybody from, Suzanne Brockman and Rayanne Thane, and who is still with us, thank God. And we have a lot of new authors we're very excited about. And we just are always looking for new authors, new voices, characters where readers can see themselves. And We also, one thing that I hope the people on this call and this video know, on the series side, we don't require an agent, which is a big deal for authors who are just starting out. So I don't know how much of the printed material the authors who are participating in this will have received, but submittable.com is the best way to submit if you're interested in any of the Harlequin series side. It doesn't have to be special edition, and we have, like I said, we have suspense and intrigue. The only thing we require across the series line is that these be romances. Beyond that, anything goes. So I hope that helps a little.
That actually does help a lot. And I want to dive a little bit more into the submission process, because now that we've heard about, the novels and the projects that you guys acquired, the books that you're putting out, people are probably saying, well, wait, how do I submit? Especially those that are listening to the playback. So I believe majority of you guys require the project to be agented, like they have to be represented. But do you take any unsolicited? Do you take unsolicited manuscripts? Karina?
Yeah,
okay.
Karina does. We work, I'd say it's about 50-50 at this point, 50% agented, 50% unagented, but you are certainly welcome to submit without an agent.
Yeah. So take us into that space for those who, because the first door to get through is to the agent, and then the agent would then get to you. So take us into your advice that you would give to new writers that are wanting to submit but don't quite have an agent. What would be your advice on finding the right agent for them?
Peter and Natalie might have a bit more to say on this end of things, because they do require the agent.
So one thing just first, we in general, we require an agent for Hanover, and I think that's true for Park Row as well. But whenever I do conferences, that's maybe my exception to that rule, and I think we all get pitches after this. If people think that we're the right imprint, that sort of thing. And so in those cases, I don't look for an agent, but or I don't require an agent. But I do think agents are really helpful. I know that they seem like this huge hurdle, and that there's a lot of stress, and it's very hard for authors to find the right agent. But the agent works for you. The agent works for the author, and they're part of your defense. They're part of your planning your writing career. One of the really simple way that I think about agents, I think authors should look for agents that are in tune with the type of writing that they write, that the type of book that they're working on. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that, there are places like Publishers Marketplace. There are plenty of places online where you can find examples. But if you read a book that you love, or a writer that you love that you feel like is writing in a similar space or touching on the same sort of ideas that you are, you can either find it on their website, find it in the acknowledgments of the book that you're reading. They usually thank their agent. And I honestly think that's one of the best ways to find people that are in tune with you, is you both clearly like the same writer. You're starting off on a better footing, I think, because of that. So honestly, when I read a book that I love, I look and see who the agent is and write the agent and say, please keep me in mind for what else you're representing, because I'd love to receive it. So I think that can help on the author side. When you're looking to put together your list of agents to submit to, it helps to know what those people publish, and it helps in your query letter to say, I loved X writer that you publish, that you represent. That's why I'm getting in touch with you. It develops a connection.
Love it.
Yeah, I could just chime in really quickly. Peter, I think you really covered it. Park Row is similar in that, with conferences, I'm happy to, consider the pitches, and don't require an agent at this point. But normally Park Row does require an agent. And as you go forth and query agents, I always say that it's really helpful to be able to describe your book in one sentence, because that one sentence pitch is going to get the attention of the agent, because it basically is going to help the agent pitch your book all along the way. It's going to help the editor pitch your book to, you know, our team and everything. So, and then, you know, it helps the sales force, you know, pitch the book to their accounts. Like it helps every single stage of the publishing process. So the earlier you have that one line punchy pitch figured out, the better. And that can really help your agent journey. If you figure the agent route is best
these
for
are
you
really, really good feedback. Sheree, I want to ask you, because now that kind of takes me into one of our master classes that's actually being taught during Black Rights Weekend later on today, which was the art of creating a log line, which is like one sentence for scripts. And I always struggle with that. And so I struggle with the one sentence for the book too. So Sheree, I want to go into your creative space. What would be the best approach to try to summarize your book in one sentence? And then if anybody else wants to chime in.
So we actually, in that process, it starts bigger, of course, because you have to whittle it down. So a lot of times we'll find clients don't know exactly what they're, so if we're speaking nonfiction, right? Clients are like, I want to tell a story. I want to share my story. And so we always work to figure out what the actual message is. What are you really teaching us? What are you sharing sharing your life story, your experiences for what? What's the outcome? You want us to learn a specific something. You want us to do something with this. So we work really hard to get clarity very early on. And that way, and that takes a lot of questions. So it's back and forth, it's pulling, it's challenging in a way that oftentimes new writers are not used to. So then in that space, once we have like all of these answers that you've given, then we can whittle it down to see exactly what you're saying. So you're telling me that you want to do this. You want your story to motivate me to become smarter, stronger, or give up, you know, that dead weight, or whatever that specific thing is, leap into my destiny, whatever those specifics are. In that space, but we can only get there by asking a lot of really critical questions in the beginning of the process. So that helps once we get clarity as to what you're talking about. And then we kind of kick it around to see if we can make it like that 30-second pitch conversation. But it always starts with, what are you really talking about and why are you doing this? And oftentimes, who is the person that needs to hear this? Who is your target audience? And if you can answer that and make that one sexy sentence, and we can help in that process, but getting the clarity overall is key.
Got it. Let's jump into, I want to ask a couple more questions of you guys, because I'm always on the creative side. I'm an author. I know I have goals myself, but I never really get to dig into the editor or the agent's goals. So, and you don't technically, or you're not out there signing the books. Your face isn't technically on the back of the book cover, but with you basically are a big reason to why the book is in the hands of the reader. So what are some of your personal goals as an editor and working with each of your prospective imprints? What goals do you guys have? Do you aim to be, you know, a very notable and popular editor? Do you aim to have your own line one day or your own lineup of writers? Are you looking to start your own agency? I'm just kind of curious, what are the goals that editors reach for? And I'm sorry, I put my hand directing.
It's a deep question.
Yeah.
I know I always dive in deep, y'all. I'm sorry, but I'm always diving into the mental, in the emotional space, because editors are creatives too. You know, they really help, you know, the stories come to life. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm just curious about a little bit about you guys' process.
So I'll start, if you don't mind. For me, as an editor, my goal is essentially to give my clients the confidence that they need to write really good stories, to teach them the technical aspects of writing, but for them to find the value in their own voices. And this is in fiction and in nonfiction as well. So if we can equip them and empower them, educate them, then there's this light bulb that goes off. And that's the part that makes me really excited, is when they all of a sudden get it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can do this. I can have a transition. I can scene set this way. I can bring my character in this way. And I'm like, yes, you can do all these things. So super excited. I think I love it because my team lights up too. We have these like winning days where in our group chat, we're like, look at what my client wrote. Look at this sentence. She rocked this sentence. And we're like, yes. So to get the client to have that breakthrough for themselves, to see just how powerful they are, how strong they are, how valuable their actual story is, their message, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. That for me is a major, major goal, is to be able to like get behind them and push them out into whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's self-published or sign with a major. Like, all things are possible, and books can change your life. Like, all of us here are in this space because of books, right? How crazy is that? So I love that. And if we can just give them that kind of confidence to do that, then for me, that's what makes me really happy.
Can I just say, I love what you just said. That's amazing. For me, what I wanted to say is, I think that having so much experience in series, I never really articulated the answer to this question, but I think that within the parameters of series, I'm always looking.
To say is,
sorry, I'm getting an echo of myself, but
yes.
No, I have to say that a lot of people might scoff at what series is because it does have some parameters. Within those parameters, however, one can write almost anything. And if my goal for myself is that I would love people, many years from now to say, okay, she knew what she liked and she was able to recognize it, because I want people to feel that if I've lit on you, then and I see something special in you, then I want you to be able to see it in yourself too. So the answer is not that different than what Sheree said, but I honestly feel like, there is so much out there, and there are days when, as an editor, you're really exhausted and you've read a lot of material and you're like, oh God, I don't even want to like this. And yet you start it and you're like, oh crap, this is really good. Now what do I do? So I think there's a lot of that in series, and I think that it travels all the way up the line, but yeah.
I if I can just jump in for a second, I think, Gail, part of what you're talking about that I really appreciated coming to Harlequin, and I think is always worth keeping in mind, is that people read books for a lot of different reasons, and one of those reasons is fun and entertainment, and you want an escape from what might be going on in your day or at work or that sort of thing. And I like books that I learn something from. I like books that are, maybe you're educating yourself or you're improving yourself, but I don't want people, my hope is that people don't think of books as just homework, just schoolwork, and I really appreciate that. And honestly, I mean, that's what we are as readers. We go to books. I want people to think of books as the same way they think of going to the movies or watching a TV show they love. It doesn't have to be an assignment. It can be something that's, your oasis in the day, which I think is really, really positive. The other thing, one thing you asked, Tamika, about sort of where we see ourselves, I think, especially as a lot of us probably, I bet people write on the side. One of the editors within Hanover, he published his memoir last year, John Glynn. His book's called Out East, and he's a writer too, but I think as editors, we're all really focused on how to make the book the best book that the author is aiming to write. I often sort of tell authors that I'm the guy who checks to make sure you don't have spinach in your teeth before you go on stage. Like I want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and going out there and telling the story that you aim to tell in the strongest way possible. And I came from an imprint within St. Martin's that was named after the publisher there. And one of the things with Hanover was really, it's not named after me, and I didn't want it to be. It's not about me. It's about the author and it's about the book. And I think that's really important to sort of keep that, humility, keep that modesty. This is as much as you'll see of me out in the world. I sort of want to stay behind the scenes. But part of why I think that's so fun is it allows you to work with so many different authors and really help them and make sure that they're, they're getting their face out there and they're getting their story and their message out there too.
Yeah. So you like to get the girl to open, like the best friend and the sidekick, or like the one that's rooting for the star to be the star.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know that there's everybody, there's a role for everyone, and so there wouldn't be, sometimes it wouldn't be an Oprah without the Gail. Like Gail has to be there.
Right.
Everybody kind of figures that role. That's a really, really great way to kind of say that. I don't know, Carrie, did you want to add to that question, or are you living the life? Because I'm loving this cabin in the woods.
No, I'm happy to answer, and I think everybody's brought something a little bit different to the table. So two things. When thinking about working with authors, it really is all about them. Not to echo so much what Peter said, but for me personally, it's maintaining an author's voice. And I think that's a misconception about editors. We're not here to rewrite your books. We're not here to change what you're saying. I know everybody from the Harlequin side on this panel, and I can say nobody's out to do that. We're here to make your writing the best that it can be and make sure that your voice is what's coming through. And that's something that I work really hard on personally. When we're talking about aspirations and goals as editors, I mean, just to be very honest, and I hope a little funny, like this is not a profession anybody gets into to become wealthy. Let's just put that out there.
Right.
So, many editors do go on to have eponymous imprints or to work on the corporate side. I can only speak for myself and say that's not my end goal. I'm doing right now what I like to do. I can't imagine, becoming a spreadsheet person after working closely with authors for so long. So for me personally, there's only so much escalation that can happen because I do want to stay rooted in the books.
Love that. I love you guys' responses. I'm not sure, did everybody respond? Natalie, did you respond?
I'm happy to just chime in quickly. It's really just building off of what everyone's saying, and Carrie, what you're saying about amplifying voices, like that's absolutely, it rings so true for me. Growing up, I'm a lifelong reader, of course, and books really shaped how I viewed the world growing up. They provided safety, comfort, and just knowledge, walking in someone else's shoes in a way that I never, really would have been able to otherwise. So that's really why I entered the industry. It's to lift up voices, and especially voices that have been barred from mainstream literature due to systemic oppression and erasure. And for me, I think that really is at the core of what I'm striving to accomplish in my career. And so I hope to one day have an imprint where I get to do that and hold the purse strings. But wish me luck.
Yes.
I love the boss stuff. Yes, I'm never gonna be a boss, y'all. I really enjoy getting to know you guys and hearing about you guys' journeys. Before we do conclude, again, for those who are interested in submitting manuscripts to any of our panelists, please go to blackwritersweekend.com and select the Creatives Pass, and you will be sent the submission form to upload your manuscripts and your cover letters so that they can review your projects. I did want to ask one more question, because I like to call, long ago, I began to call authors artists, because once I really began to kind of identify how to make these events experiences in person, I wanted to make the words kind of come alive, or people to experience the author more so than just sitting, listening to them talk or read the book. That wasn't quite entertaining. So I wanted to kind of find different ways to approach books. So I started calling authors artists. And with the artistry becomes a brand and an image, the way that you talk, the books that you put out, it all kind of aligns and goes together like a musician or an actor, what you would kind of think that they would, act in or dress or talk or speak. So we have additional different creative clinics and classes to kind of help writers identify themselves, as an artist and as a brand. So with that being said, when you guys are reading these manuscripts, do you pay attention at all to the writer themselves? Are you interested in who they are? Are you interested in their personality, if they're going to be marketable? I'm always wondering that, like, how do they, because sometimes I see really, really successful books and then the writer we can't find them online. Their website is like this bootlegs, just all over the place website. And I'm like, excuse me, I done spent all this over here to make sure I got a really nice, clean website. I'm trying to look presentable. And they got this big old mass market deal. And their website is just, that's not fair. So this is just my personal question. Y'all don't care about what the artist looks like and what they doing? Like, what we doing? So I just want to get some feedback.
You know that there's like a publisher behind that author, like tearing their hair out, being like, why can't they be on social media? Come on.
Right.
Get that website set up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it cuts both ways though, because you never want to buy a book because of the author platform, just because of the author platform. Like the book has to be great, and I think a lot of, I really like what you have to say about, thinking of authors as artists, because, in a lot of ways, the publisher is just like part of their bigger career, and maybe we're publishing someone's novels, but they're writing short stories for everyone, magazines out there in the world, or maybe they're musicians. In some cases we have authors who are also musicians or painters or things like that. But at the same time, so the novel is sort of part of everything else they're doing. I think it really helps to know who the author is, because I do think we want to know what they're bringing to the story and whether they're coming to it with a sense of authority. And I think often that's lived experience, what their perspective is and how that informs what they're writing about. I think that's really important, and I think I don't have I don't have a checklist that every author has to do. They have to have X number of followers. People don't need MFAs. It's great if you get one. I think that's a good way to focus on your writing, but it's not like it's a requirement to get a novel published. So I don't have, I don't think it works to have a checklist of what's important for a writer. I think it's really about what matches them with the book. And I do think sometimes, there are those authors who don't want to be online or don't want to have a presence, and I do think it can make it harder. I mean, when you think about how you want to reach readers and you want to have readers continue to follow you and know more about the future books you have, that's sort of why you want a website and social media and things like that. I don't know if others want to add to this, though. That's sort of my perspective on it.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say I get absolutely what Peter is saying. I think I'm a little more old school maybe in terms of social media presence, but I do find that people who have careers that are not what you'd expect from a romance writer. So when Merlene Lovelace started publishing with us, she was a very recently retired Air Force colonel, which was a fun backstory even before, she still had to write the books. But I mean, look at Stacey Abrams. I think she's busy right now, but she does have her romance writing history, and what everyone loves, besides what everyone loves about Stacey Abrams in general, is that she is very respectful of that history. So I think that people who have, lots of lawyers tend to find romance writing a lot more interesting than their day jobs. And so we have a lot of lawyers. We have a number of doctors, people who either write along with their profession or found writing to be a good outlet for them personally. So I'm always interested in their backstory more than I am in their social media presence and platform. However, I think our marketing department would absolutely agree that, they're looking constantly, how many followers, what's the Instagram story, can you promote this on your social media? Yeah. But, it's kind of a mix. But yes, we're always looking for interesting personal platforms that can add to what we can do to promote the author, certainly.
Gail, you mentioned the marketing department, and I think that's worth remembering. Like if you do sign with a publisher, they have marketing people who will work with you and give you advice on how to do social media, how to set up a website. We have a lot of really helpful, informative how-tos for authors within Harlequin that we put together for any possible way you can promote your book. And I think that's been really helpful. The onus is on the author to have the time and the effort to take it and run with it. But we really try to help guide authors in those ways.
Right.
So I'm going to jump in and say the same for working with self-published authors. As opposed to calling them artists, Tamika, I like to call them authorpreneurs, right? So they view it as a business, right? You view going into this as a means to income, as a means to change your life. So you have to think about it as a business. Do you have your website set up? Do you have, freebies or giveaways? Do you have incentives to get people interested? Are you sharing on social media consistently about your message? If you are a fiction writer, are you talking about your characters? Are you showing us your work in progress? Do we see you behind the scenes? Are you pulling us in? Or are you just going to, my students laugh at me all the time, but I always go, are you just going to jump out 6 months from now? Like, hey, I wrote a book by my book. Hey, I wrote a book. Wait a minute. You haven't given me any press. You don't know who you are. Especially in the nonfiction space, we have to know, like, trust you to be able to want to get into what it is that you're sharing with us. So are you consistently communicating what's out there? I mean, what you are passionate about? If you are an advocate for, a dog lover. I met a young lady some time ago who was like, oh, Miss Sheree, I love animals and I want to be, a veterinarian and I love this. I was like, let me see your social media. And she showed me her social media and it was nothing but selfies. And I was like, well, where are the puppies?
Oh, Lord.
How come I don't know what you're into, right? So we work in that space, like Peter said. Like there's a list of things that you should think about your website. How can we put in the client, the editor, the writer is still responsible for doing that, right? You have to get that work done. You have to have a brand. What is your brand? What should people look at you and know you're about? So yeah, that works in that same space for self-published authors as well. We take them through that process. So you're not just out here with the book hoping to sell it, but you have a plan prior to, and knowing that in the beginning helps you with marketing the book in the long run.
Love it. So I want to end the panel with just a couple questions from the audience because we haven't had a chance to kind of ask some of these questions. And then I want to get you guys contact information. So first in the chat room, someone asked, well, what do you feel about pen names? That's a really quick, easy one.
I don't like
pen
them.
names.
Are pen names okay?
Wow. Can I tell you what I'm not a fan, especially for nonfiction? I'm not a fan of pen names for nonfiction because I think people hide, like they shrink behind their own story. So if I said, well, if you're going to write this life-changing story, who's going to tell it? Who's going to get on the stage and speak? How are you going to promote it? So in nonfiction, I would say no, because it's your story. Take ownership of it and use your authority to change lives if that's what you have endeavored, and been called to do. And again, people, a lot of time writers want to shrink away or hide from that part. So no, I don't like pen names in that space. But for fiction, I think it's a lot more creative and more free in that space. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That's a really great point. Because with nonfiction, people want to interview you. You're out there giving talks. You're out there meeting with people. You need to be part of it. I think the only challenge these days with pen names is everyone is on Google all the time, and so you have to sort of decide if you're being open with your pen name or if you're really hiding your real name, your name on your license or something like that. And and that can be tricky these days. And I do feel like occasionally you have authors who are writing under different names. And I don't know if other people agree, but I think at this point, sometimes it's almost better to just be upfront and say, I write this type of book under this name and I write this type of book under this name. And this is more for the reader to help them differentiate what they're going to get.
I love it. I love that advice.
Makes sense.
Going back, I agree. For nonfiction, it's a whole different ballgame. But on the fiction side of things, I would say about 90, if not more, % of the authors on our list use pen names, use pseudonyms, and everybody's got a personal reason for that. But when we go back to the concept of hiding, honestly, sometimes it's a way for them to be free and tell a story that they otherwise wouldn't be able to under their real name in their communities. Maybe it's a very sexy story and they don't want the parents at their kid's school to know what they're writing. Just one example.
Right.
Maybe the subject matter is very tough and it's coming from personal experience. It's not something else that they want out there. So it's very normal for me to be working with authors who write under a pen name.
Right. Now, this is a good question because there are a lot of self-published writers or independent writers that come to Black Writers Weekend. So are any of you guys ever interested in books that have been self-published before?
I'll jump in quick. Yes, but. So several years ago, maybe 5, maybe 6 years ago, when the ebook space and the publication space wasn't quite so crowded, right? It was before KDP. It was before a lot of these things.
Right.
I would have said yes without any sort of addendum. Now it's yes, but from my perspective, absolutely, I will take a look at it. I'd like to know your sales history, all of that good stuff. But most of the time, for us to consider it very seriously, we need some new material attached to it. So it's got to be a next book in a series, or it's got to be a prequel. It has to be something new that we can publish alongside it to help build and rebuild.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly what Carrie said. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think there's I don't publish her myself, but there's someone named Taran Fisher who's published by one of the other imprints. Yeah. Graydon House. Right. And, yeah, I think she was a case where it's like she had built up as a self-published author and then she made a move, but with a new book. I feel like often that's sort of what we need is, so what are you doing next that we can, readers are always looking for the next thing, so.
Okay. That makes sense too. And then a viewer asked, why is Harlequin always associated with sex stories? Okay, that's everybody's assumption. So yeah, and that kind of, how does that even interfere with the other presses, the guys that you guys work with, Natalie, Carrie, and Peter?
I think I should go first because I think that I have been asked this question many times by many people, including, my dentist. So I think it's a fair question. And yet I really do think that there is, even within series, there's a huge spectrum, if you will, that where things are very, very explicit, and then things that are not at all. So I think that it was a fair question in the older days. I think that now it's look, I think anytime anybody hears the word Harlequin for the rest of time, that is the first thing they're going to think about.
Right.
But that's okay. I mean, I think it's an incredible advantage to have such clear branding. But I also think that obviously with Peter and with Natalie, especially, we're here to tell you that we do an awful lot of material, and it's just not. It's a fair question. It's not a fair assumption anymore. Yeah. Is the best I can say.
I mean, it's great branding, isn't it? Like
right.
Harlequin owns that brand, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Park Row for Natalie and with Hanover, that's one reason that we have different imprint names. And if you go and find our books in a bookstore and you look on the spine, you see our imprint, you don't see Harlequin. And that's definitely not a negative about Harlequin. I mean, Harlequin is so strong, but we had, one of the reasons we started these new imprints was to create names to separate that for booksellers and reviewers and that sort of thing.
All righty. Well, those were all the questions. Did you guys have anything else you want to add before we conclude this morning?
I want to say,
all right. So let's give out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that this has been great.
Sheree was a little.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, it has. Right. I told you we were going to have a conversation.
Yeah, this has been great. excited to have met you all and to see that there are other opportunities for some of the clients that we work with to send them in your direction who are looking to go the traditional route of publishing. So I've got some copious notes to review. So this is for me as well. Thank you.
Word for the day. Ding. Copious.
Yeah.
Copious mean a lot, right?
You are so crazy.
All right, Sheree, while you're on, though, can you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Sure. Absolutely. So I'm on all things social media at Sheree Robbins. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you're looking to find out more about the business and what I do, the name of my company is Good Ground Literary Services, and we are at goodgroundlit.com. And you can also check us out at literarybay.com as well.
I love that.
Literary Bay. Natalie, you go next.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. This has been so much fun. And yeah, you can reach me at natalie.halleck@harpercollins.com. And also I'm on Twitter at Natalie Halleck. And then Park Row also has a Twitter and Instagram account and a website. So yeah, feel free to follow us at any of those locations. Thank you again.
Thanks, Natalie. Pete.
I'm just looking up as we're talking. I'm like, what is our Twitter handle? Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I'm really glad we could do this. You can reach me. I think we all might have in the Harlequin group. We all have the same email formula. It's first name dot last name at HarperCollins, because HarperCollins is a much bigger publisher that owns Harlequin in the big picture. But Hanover Square, we have a website. I was going to say Hanover underscore square is our Twitter handle. And then on Instagram, we're Hanover Square Press on Instagram. And those are sort of like the really active accounts if you want to know what we're publishing, give you a sense of all the news and author events and things like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, thank you so much. I'm really glad we could do this.
And Peter, we're gonna get you to come out from behind the desk. We're gonna have you come out first weekend next summer, so you can have
this is all over, and we're
yeah. Carrie, you go next.
Sure. So I've got the HarperCollins email address, but I also have carrie.buckley@harlequin.com.
Ooh, she got two.
I do. I actually have three. I also have carrie.buckley@carinapress.com, but you're welcome to use any of those. Submission-wise, you can get right to the Carina Press submission link through harlequin.com or through carinapress.com. It's a big button on both of those websites. On Twitter, I'm at Buckley Carrie. And then I also would encourage you to follow at Carina Press. And a new Instagram handle, if that's what you say, that I think is really interesting. I just want to encourage everybody to have a look at is the Harlequin Art Department. They've been really working on this now, and it's so fun. And I see things from imprints that I don't work with frequently that I'm just like blown away by all the time. So it's worth a follow. And thanks again. This was great.
Thanks, Carrie. And Gail, I had to save you for last.
Oh, God.
So tell us where we can find you.
Same as Carrie almost, because as Peter said, so it's gail.chasen at harlequin.com or at harpercollins.com. I can be reached on either. I'm at Chasen Gail on Twitter. And definitely look at the harlequin.com site. You can find links to any of the series. You can find any of the editors directly. You can absolutely work through Submittable as well. And thank you so much. This was terrific. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys. This was really, really fun. I'm going to end the chat with answering this last question about classes. A writer asked, should writers take classes, keep polishing? And yes, as I say before, writers are an artist. So that means you should always be polishing, your creativity. Just like a musician, they practice their music. Just like a singer, they have a vocal coach. So they're always practicing their voice. You should always be polishing your writing and attending courses that's going to help you be a better writer. And with that being said, we have a fall conference coming up called The Creative Con. And you can go to thecreativecon.com and sign up for some of those classes, because we'll be teaching and pitching and coaching and all that jazz virtually for Creative Con this year. So thank you again, guys. For those who continue to party with us for the rest of the weekend, make sure you go to blackwritersweekend.com and check out the remaining of the schedule for the day. And I'm going to leave you with some Harlequin facts. And I'll see you guys later. Continue to be safe.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Our stories, our voice, our history hasn't always been welcomed. But we learned long ago that if America won't celebrate us, then we will celebrate our own, told our way, on our time. Today we have thousands of Black creators in film. Thousands of books are on the shelves of stores around the world. But it wasn't always as easy. For Lena, for Hattie, for James, for Zora, for Langston, we fought for a place in American history, and we've empowered our own voices, keeping our stories alive. Remember Philando, remember Mike, remember Trayvon, remember Sandra, remember Oscar, remember Brianna. No more will Black voices go unheard. No more will Black stories go unread. We will write our own history and create our own legacies. And each summer in Atlanta, we will gather. We will celebrate. We speak out. Black voices matter. Black stories matter. Black lives matter. Everybody has a story to tell. Make sure that you tell yours. Create your story. Dream out loud.